So, welcome to the very first episode of the Kyero Pro Podcast. As the title suggests, this is a podcast for estate agents in Spain. If you're buying in Spain, you're welcome to listen to it, but it's really for the people who are in the industry and trying to figure out how to do the best job they can do. So, I'm joined by Alfredo Bloy Dawson today, consultant on the Costa del Sol. So my name's Martin Dell. I'm one of the founders of Kyero.com way back in 2003, when if you could spell SEO, then you were at the top of the pile. Things have changed a little bit since then. And also the market for international buyers has changed dramatically in the last, 22, 23 years. So those are some of the things we're going to be talking about. How, as an agent, do you figure out what's actually going on, not what all the hype and the headlines say, and more importantly, what do you do about it? What do you do with that information?
Well, that sounds like it's going to be kind of useful. I mean, really, the idea here is that somehow between two old guys, we're going to come up with something, remotely useful for a few agents, and at least, if nothing else, to confirm what they already knew. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. In fact, I've just been reading this book by Cory Doctorow called Inshittification, and it really does describe the arc of the journey of Google over the last 20 odd years. I mean, if you remember in the 2000s when Google came out, it was pretty much the only search engine that worked. There were the likes of Alta Vista and Lycos and a million other search engines, and they were useless. It was a complete random thing whether you got any results that were of any use. And then Google came along and it's like, whoa, search works. But the premise of that book is services start off by being great and serving the people they're designed for. Then they figure out a business model and they start serving the business community. And the third stage is they frustrate the people using it and the business community in search of more money. And unfortunately, that's where Google is today. And the only reason they're trying harder now with AI is because somebody else beat them to it. So we're all stuck in the middle of this massive disruption. And while they sort themselves out, we need to figure out what to do to carry on earning a living and making money.
Would it be fair to say, Martin, and I'm going to ask you some questions since I have the luck of having you with me to answer some of these things as a portal boss. Would it be fair to say that it is harder than ever for agents to know where they should get leads from and just to get those leads?
I think it is. I mean, as a portal, we find it hard to figure out where to spend our marketing money. And we typically got more marketing money to spend than most agents. And there's no shortage of options. There are plenty of places that will take your money. Google, of course, but also Facebook and social, and maybe you should do some SEO. I think part of the challenge is because the sales cycle is so long with international sales. You do something today, you generate a lead today, and unless you're on it and you know whether that lead is going to convert 6 months, a year in the future, it's really hard to back test. Did this lead gen work? Was it a good lead? Was it worth paying for? So, Alfredo, you can spend all the money you like on Facebook and you'll generate a load of leads, but you may not generate the sales from those leads. They'll probably come from other sources. Does that sound about right?
It sounds completely right. I think agents have the difficult task of having to give the whole process time, whether it be through a portal specifically or Google Ads or whatever, for it to work because of the long time between a lead and a sale. I mean, that's 4 to 6 months might be an average that I've known of. But that could be the last lead that's generated by wherever the source of leads is. So you could maybe wait 4 to 6 months after the last lead that's generated. And you then have to go on faith whether you continue advertising or continue spending money. Or so really for an agent, it's not very easy for them to tell where they should advertise, where they should get their leads, whether a lead source is working or not. And there is a pattern that they tend to follow, which is there's not enough leads followed by these leads are no good, and that is a sort of something, regardless of the source. I mean, that's everywhere. I think every portal, every Google Ads consultant, I've come across that 1,000 times. And that's for good reason, because it's one of the few industries where success looks like failure, meaning that the percentage of leads to get a sale is so overwhelmingly poor that when you're succeeding, it kind of looks numerically like you're not. If that makes sense. I mean, what sort of conversion rate do you sort of work on approximately from lead to sale?
Yeah,
Or do agents work? You know?
just about to ask you that question, but we work on a 1%, so 1 in 100, and clearly from an agent's point of view, it looks like they're wasting 99% of their marketing budget, and that's a really hard thing to get your head around. And I know in the past we've toyed with paper lead models, and I know some of our colleagues in the industry have played with paper lead models. But the problem is agents only want to pay for the good leads. And if we could figure that out, then yeah, we'd be richer.
Yeah. So I mean, we're basically in an industry where, particularly with the international buyer market, because they're, as you said, they're mostly, at least the market that we're talking about here, which is more the coastal. Is that where the Kyero marketplace? Just tell us a little bit about where
Traditional ones for us, I mean, the Costa del Sol is the most established, but in general, it's the coasts and the islands. So Costa del Sol, number one, which is what, every third buyer is an international buyer, something like that.
Yeah.
Go up to the Costa Blanca, every second buyer is an international buyer, and the islands, of course, and they tend to be, Mallorca, we all know is German, but yeah, coasts and islands are the main places. Then there are little sort of unusual places as well, like the Barcelona coast. You get people going there for city life, the culture, and coast. It's interesting. There's a class of international buyer. We were puzzled by this for a long time. We were looking at our stats and going, there's a lot of our audience speaking Spanish. Why are they using Kyero? Why aren't they using Idealista or Fotocasa? And we figured out eventually it's because they're not Spaniards. They're from Latin America, and they search like foreigners, but they speak Spanish. So They tend to go for the cities because, they're looking for a real life and work there. But yeah, traditional ones, coasts and islands.
Just go back a little bit and tell me a little bit about Kyero. When did it start? Why did it start? Where did it start? Because I think this positions the story, what we're about to talk about in the next episode, puts you in a position of quite unusual knowledge, in terms of how the market's changed. So just give us how did it all get started and where?
Yeah. So there was a failed newspaper business that preempted Kyero. So Louise, my co-founder, my wife, and I, we'd arrived in Almuneca, which is just south of Granada. We bought our first piece of property in Spain. It was a piece of land, and we were going to build on it and do that expat dream thing. And the agent we bought it from had an idea of publishing a newspaper in English and distributed in the UK, showing basically classified ads for property. And I was escaping a tech career in the UK, and I said, hey, we can help you with that. I know how to build a website, and if you're going to publish a newspaper, you should probably have a database on the back end. And if you're going to have a database, you might as well have a website. So we got involved in the technology aspects of producing that newspaper. Louise was selling it. I was doing some of the techie work, and it worked, except that all of the cost was in producing and distributing the newspaper, and all of the leads were coming from the internet.
Right. And what year are we talking?
Ooh, this was 2001, 2002.
Okay. So quite a chunk before online ads was new, right?
Yeah, it was very new. And the only way we could sell the online part was because we had a tangible, a physical newspaper. This was back in time when an agent did a marketing campaign, they printed up a bunch of flyers and stuck them under windscreens. That was the extent of the sophistication then. And part of the challenge we had with agents then is they were like, well, I'm not online. I don't have a website. I don't even have an email address. So we could only sell the online aspect of that business because there was a newspaper. It was really interesting.
And how were you measuring leads in those days if they didn't have websites and things like that?
Right. So we were generating leads. I think they were coming in centrally and then we were either forwarding them. I mean, a lot of the back end, a lot of the way properties got listed in the newspaper was via fax. I mean,
Facts.
so we had agents faxing us details. It was a checkbox form. And then we had people doing data entry into the database to produce the newspaper and then feed the website. It was rudimentary, to say the least.
So, I mean, we're talking 20 years, right? 20 years?
25, 24, 25 years ago, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, this whole industry in terms of agents get, apart from the existing industries that have referrals, but the online side of things, it's a 25-year-old industry.
Only, yes, it is. And I remember speaking with agents at the time, and they struggled to understand the concept of what they've been used to is people turn up in their town and they walk past their shop and they see a property and they come into the shop. That was the, my shop front is my market. And they struggled to conceptually get the idea of that their buyers weren't all in the location where they were, that they were somewhere else in another country thinking about this before they even showed up. And so the newspaper, the newspaper was great because they understood newspaper. They knew what it was. It was a piece of print marketing. And then the idea of the print marketing going to another country, they could get their heads around that. But actually the thing that worked was it was online and the audience were beginning to search online.
And so in those days, you would get the people that were searching online through search engine optimization, right? Having a website that had the stuff that they were looking for. How has that changed in 25 years, Martin? Tell me.
Oh my, well, so 25 years ago, having a website put you ahead of the pack. If you could spell SEO, you were ahead of the pack. And it was so easy to win at SEO 25 years ago. If you just tried a little bit, it was so easy to game it. And now it's just not possible. I mean, if I could go back in time and congratulate my much, much younger self for doing something right, it would be registering a brandable domain name, Kyero, and doing that 25 years ago. That was it. So the success we've had is based on learning SEO as we've gone along. I actually think being bootstrapped, we've never taken any investment. So being able to steer our own path through the various market changes. And building an asset, building an online asset for 25 years, there's just no substitute for that. If you have a whole ton of venture money now, you still can't win at SEO.
Right. And has the job for a portal, from your perspective, and you're quite aware of what's going on in other portals, in the last 3-4 years, has it stayed the same? What's changed, would you say, in the more recent history?
Well, the arrival of large language models, AI, and their ability to aggregate information from a portal point of view, it disrupts the central premise of a portal, which is we aggregate the information. We're not totally there yet, and it's not clear how it's going to go. But you can see how the LLMs are disrupting Google's business. So Google's premise was we aggregate all the world's information, and now the LLMs are going, yeah, but I don't want a visitor, a searcher doesn't want all the information. They want the answer. So don't make them browse 10 blue links. Just give them the answer. Now, there's a discussion about whether that actually works or not and how well that works in property. But I know from speaking with big industry players, they're very scared that their central premise for being online, that of aggregation, is going away. And particularly in a domestic market. So they're in Bath, where we live and work, there's a new kind of property portal based on AI. It's an AI search. And it's not based on search filters. It's not based on 3 beds, 2 baths, 500K. It's not based on any of those parameters. It's based on, I want I want this distance commute. I want somewhere with a great view, south facing, with a small garden. And it's a text search. And their engine will go and aggregate listings from anywhere, because anybody can scrape any website these days, and give you 5 links of properties that meet that criteria. That's what the portals are scared about. It's not reality yet. It doesn't work particularly well now, but that's the promise of AI. Meanwhile, SEO is breaking under its own weight anyway. So the Cory Doctorow's book, if you think about what's happened to Google over the 25 years that we've been looking at it, it started with 10 blue links, and it was these links are relevant and great. And now you've got to get to page 2 before you can find an organic link. So there's less traffic going to Google, and the traffic that is going to Google, they're siphoning off on paid ads. And they've got their own AI layer in there as well now. So the actual traffic that's trickling through to organic listings is tiny compared to 20 years ago.
And I think one thing that might be quite useful for some agents to really wrap their heads around, which is only really just the penny's only just dropped with you talking about it, is we have portals and we have like online ads, like Google ads, that sort of thing, right? We've sort of established that, like, on the online side, they're the 2 primary sources of leads for agents. But currently, they're both the same thing when you really think about it, because Google ads are organic. They're organic listings that, for example, Kyero has, and that you pay money to Google so that yours appears above Kyero or whoever else for a particular keyword. And so each agency it's basically the same viewer. It's in the same place, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? The actual buyer, the behavior that got them there is the same behavior largely. They've searched for something and they've either seen an ad, which would be your Google ads thing that we talk about, or they've seen some organic results, which would more likely be a portal. Now, I think it's also important to say that I think nearly all portals also do Google ads, because they basically fill the gaps where they need it.
Yeah.
So the question isn't really, is Google ads better than portals or this or that or the other? Would I be right in saying that it's more to do with each individual agency's ability to compete at a reasonable price? Is that, is it leverage? Are you putting your listings through a portal that has mass reach, or are you trying to just compete with everybody and pay for it? What's your views on what I'm saying there?
Yeah, so I think paying for traffic as a portal is a different proposition from paying for traffic as an agent. So our biggest frustration as a portal is we never see the conversion. So we actually don't know how well we're doing. We can benchmark ourselves against previous performance and go, okay, we're trending okay. But because we don't see the conversion, we buy traffic for a different reason than an agent buys traffic. So an agent buys traffic because they want to get a sale. It's much more transactional and they can measure conversion rate. We buy traffic to fill the top of the funnel. And then we work that lead through various on-site features to keep that person engaged over the long haul. So, maybe for a couple of years. So when we're buying traffic, we're filling the top of our funnel. When an agent's buying traffic, they're hoping to get a sale. And those are very different cost equations.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, for an agent deciding which type of lead source is right for them and how to tell a good one from a bad one, all sort of things, we're going to cover that in future episodes, aren't we? This first season, if you like, is going to be 6 episodes, I think you said. What are the next episodes going to be about? Just so people can kind of have an idea of when we're going to take deep dives into the various topics. Do you have that information to hand?
I do. I'm going to have to refer to my notes because
Refer away.
I'm getting old now and my memory isn't what it used to be. So next episode 2, we're going to talk about lead sources. 3rd episode, we're going to do a deep dive on portals and how to tell a good one from a bad one. Clearly, I've got a dog in that fight. Episode 4, we're looking at SEO and what it means today and how it's changed. 5, we're going to look at Google ads and Meta, those kind of adverts, so paid advertising. And 6, we're going to talk about how you got all the leads. How do you convert them? How do you work them? How do you build a pipeline that's got value over time?
Right. So we're going to go deep into all of these things, aren't we? You were saying about the story of Kyero. So we've kind of gone to the start. let's go to the middle bit and maybe end up where we are now. I think that'll be quite interesting for people to see what you've witnessed. So in the first days, in the early days, in the beginning, there was pen and paper, printed stuff. Online was fairly new, and you were one of the first portals to sort of tap into that foreign buyer market here, international buyer market here.
Yeah.
Now go forward, I don't know, 10 years or so. What's Kyero then? What are you seeing?
Well, I should probably finish off on the newspaper story. So eventually that business folded because of the cost of printing and distribution. And we took that idea and turned it into Kyero. So that Kyero was never branded as the newspaper. And so I think we were in Spain, we registered an SL, Kyero Media SL, which I've since found out means I like stockings or I like tights. We didn't know. We barely spoke Spanish then. So that was 2003. For the next 4 or 5 years, it was pretty steady growth. It's quite hard to build a subscription business because you're building it one client, €150 a month at a time. It's quite hard to pay the bills on that. So in the meantime, Louise, my wife, was working as an estate agent locally, subsidizing the business so that we could do that with her property sales. We were also doing SEO consultancy and website building just to kind of keep the pot filled. But by 2007, we had 15 people, I think, an office in town full of tech and salespeople and, a proper business. And then, of course, the financial crash happened, the crisis, and suddenly we couldn't pay the bills. We couldn't pay the rent. So we scaled back to 4 people working part-time from home. Luckily, that was just about in Almuneca when you could get a broadband connection. So it was, we started working remotely then, just to keep the business going. And we survived by doing that. And Kyero has been a remote first business ever since then. So when COVID happened in 2020, we knew how to do that because we'd been working remotely ever since. But that was, but we started locally. We started on the Costa Tropical where Almuneca is, and sort of spread out across the Costa del Sol, spread up to the Costa Blanca. And so agents found us online and approached us. We didn't have an outbound sales team then at all.
Okay. And so then was it still fairly low competition, I guess, was still low at that stage with other portals for you?
Yeah, it was a much simpler business. I think Kyero was just in English for the first few years. We didn't consider going to other languages. And at that time, the international buyer market spoke English, the vast majority anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
And the only reason we translated it was because we had agents that couldn't speak English that wanted to advertise. So we put Kyero in Spanish, and we made the smart decision to put in a translation engine that meant Kyero could be in any language when we wanted, not just string replacement of English to Spanish. So a technical thing.
At the time, so let's go to like 2012, let's say 13, 14, starting to kind of rebound from the worst days of the crisis are over. Who was the competition? What were the options, as far as you remember, for agents in terms of international property portals that would give them leads from international buyers?
Yeah,
so what we're talking about here.
So Think Spain started around about the same time as us, but on the Costa Blanca. So they were more better well known than us on the Costa Blanca. We were better known on the south coast. So we sort of met in the middle and competed a bit. That if you were looking at international buyers, there were a whole bunch. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Andalusia.com had some listings too, and there were a whole bunch of other people that started but never quite got to scale. And it's a mystery to me why not. I think our do different was my background is sales and marketing. I kind of know what good marketing looks like, and I've always had a marketing approach to selling. So rather than going, hey, Alfredo, do you want to buy this thing? Do you want to buy this thing? I've always been focused on building the thing that you want and then allowing you to buy it. Right. So the marketing sort of drive for me, I think, is really important. And I was in technical sales, so I've never been a coder, but I understand the technology enough not to get lost in the code, but also to make sure it works.
Were there any similarities to how you saw the market behave, crash, and then rebound in 2008 to 10, up into the 13, 14, 15, 16, where it all started rebounding, and COVID? Is there any similarities to the behavior from your perspective, as a portal, I mean?
Yeah, I suppose the commonality between the two is the level of caution after the event. And I don't just mean agents, I mean the public as well. When a sort of a financial reset like that happens, people typically buying a second home, they're doing it with discretionary money. It's not their primary home. And so I think what takes longer than all of us imagine is those people go, I still want to do that, but I'm not sure the time's right now. I'm not sure I want to risk that money right now until I feel a bit more confident. And because that flow of money into the market is restricted a bit, that makes agents a bit more reticent to spend money on marketing. One of the things that surprised me greatly about COVID was we had a core sort of group of clients that advertised all the way through COVID, that just said, we know this is coming back. We're not going to pull our advertising, even though nobody can travel, even though nobody can buy property in Spain from another country. We're going to carry on because we want to be here when they come back. And we also don't want to lose momentum. I was surprised by the volume of people that had that attitude. And they're contrasted with the people that go, whoa, I'm not going to do anything until I see the flood of buyers come back. And it's a chicken and egg problem in both cases.
So so COVID compared to then, I think one of the things that we were always pleasantly surprised with COVID was how quickly it rebounded and how strongly. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the fact that it didn't crash because the market was weak. It crashed for external reasons. It actually made people reevaluate their priorities a little bit more. So the post-COVID boom, we almost have two markets that I observe, and I don't know if you see the same thing, which is, whenever there's a boom period, which was after 2008, sort of 2014 to 18, I guess you could say, and then there was 2021, late 21 to last year, and you have a lot of new entrants coming into the market that weren't really aware of what the situation was beforehand, and they have an expectation of what selling looks like, based on how hard it is during a boom period, which some may argue it's quite easy during a period when it's definitely a seller's market. What changed? Has anything changed in terms of what the challenges that agents communicate to you as a portal now versus historically?
I don't think it's changed dramatically. I think agents are much smarter, much better educated about online marketing now. But the conversations are the same. So back in the good old days of SEO, we could generate more leads than you could shake a stick at. And agents were happy with the lead volume, although they're reluctant to say that. But then they go, yeah, but these leads are bad. We're not converting these leads. So those conversations still go on. And that's one of my biggest frustrations, that I'm a collaborative kind of a guy. And I'd rather go, and there are some agents we have these relationships with, where we go, okay, show me the leads, show me your follow-up method, show me which ones you convert. Let's figure out how to get more of those. But I think many agents assume that if they kind of share that level of detail with us, if they even have it, that we will just put our prices up and squeeze them. And some portals will do that. That isn't how we operate Kyero. We want to be around for a long time. And to do that, we need to collaborate with agents so that they're getting value and we're staying in business and making money.
So we've done the history lesson. Where is the market as far as you're concerned right now?
As a portal business,
yes,
I think every portal now is in transition, and it's because of AI. So up until 3 years ago, the only game in town, as a portal, the game in town was SEO supplemented with paid advertising, and that worked. And the less you could spend on paid marketing, the more profit you could make, the better your SEO. Typically, if you could invest enough in SEO, that was your cheapest way of getting traffic. Neither of those things is true anymore. I'm not saying it's completely broken, but it's not going to carry on that way. And it's working less well now than it did 3 years ago. And there's a few reasons for that. Google getting worse and just plastering everything with paid marketing. And by the way, that's affecting the price of paid marketing because SEO is harder to win at. There are more people trying to pay for ads, which pushes the prices and the level of competition up. So paid marketing is getting harder to win at. SEO is getting harder to win at. And then there's this new thing, these AI-driven searches that nobody knows how to win at yet. Even the people that say they know how to win, it might work today and it might work tactically. Nobody's got a clue. Google doesn't know. Google are willing to disrupt their own advertising model because they know somebody's going to, and they'd rather be doing it themselves. They still don't know how they're going to make money out of it. None of us do. I would bet on Google figuring it out because there's so much venture money going into the other players, and at some point that will dry up.
Is it fair to say that where there is a free source of goodness in terms of business, it's the monetization of it is never too far behind. So whatever the new model may look like, or the new entrant into the mix may look like, I think would you say it's a fairly good assumption to say that there's going to be a way of monetizing that, and by monetizing that, meaning that a way for an agent to put money behind whatever it is to try and get their piece of the pie, or
yeah, I think so. And look, we're a for-profit business. We're not here for social good or for charity. Having said that, we want to do a good job and make money, and we make it easy for agents to spend money. So we've applied AI within Kyero so that all an agent has to do is put a listing on Kyero, and we will optimize that listing to get in front of the right buyer at the right time. And an agent doesn't have to figure out, should they be buying this feature or spotlighting these things. We've only got one advertising product, and basically the more you pay, the better the response. It's really simple. So I'm not against monetization. I have a problem when monetization makes the service worse for everybody, and that's where we are now. We're still oohing and ahhing over what AI can do and what it can deliver, and I'm as excited as the next person. We haven't figured out the business model yet. Nobody has. And as a portal, that's tricky because we've got an existing client base, an existing revenue stream, and it's based on us aggregating listings and buyers together. I think that will carry on. And I think real estate actually is not a great use case for AI because it's a visual search to start with. That hasn't been figured out fully yet. And also there's an amount of browsing, there's an amount of property porn that people love to indulge in. You know, our biggest days of traffic are on Sunday after we send out a newsletter, and people just click on properties and just browse because it's fun. It's like watching daytime TV. Some of those browsers will turn into buyers, and that's the job of the portal, to cultivate that top of funnel kind of buyer into a transaction in some months' time, some years' time.
I went to a portal conference a couple of years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And the portals have forever been trying to find different ways of making money that isn't just a subscription model where you pay X amount for X amount of listings. And it always seems to come back to subscription models. That was like the short version of the whole thing. But one of the side hustles that portals were trying to automate, because portals are a tech business, aren't they? As in, it's a tech first thing. We trying to do the mortgage side, which is to automate it fully. And there was, I can't remember what the company was, some company, because it's a property portal watch where there's people from all over the world, isn't it? And there was some big outfit that had really spent a lot of money on automating the mortgage process. And to cut a long story short, what they came back with was that they can't automate the full process because consumers, there are 2 or 3 touch points during that process that they want to talk to a human.
Yeah.
that is not something they want to replace. And that stuck with me because I see that similar thing with the buying process. There's a long way to go before you find that sort of to replace that element of an agent that they can trust, that could gives you that feeling that they understand you, because we know at the moment that AI will tell you whatever you want to hear. You're the handsomest person in the world with the greatest ideas, and I find that that's probably one of those things I think that people don't actually want to replace with tech or AI, the actual human interaction part, because otherwise you'd be selling properties, wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the biggest sort of open secrets that I've landed on over the last 20 years, is that people search for property, but what they're looking for is an agent. They're looking for a guide, a partner who can walk them through their transaction. And you're right about mortgage and currency for that matter. If that person can introduce them to the mortgage or currency or whatever other services they need, insurance, removals, the agent is in the prime spot to provide all that as a trusted partner. And I mean, Alfredo, that when an inquiry is generated for a property, the person sending that inquiry almost never buys that property. They buy something else. And what they're actually looking for in making that inquiry is, does the agent respond? Do I like them? Do they understand me? Are they empathetic? And I think that's, I mean, we'll get onto this in later episodes, but I think that's where the agent adds value. And the frustration is, how do I get in the room to have that conversation? How do I start that conversation with this buyer?
The first few meetings I've had with AI consultants, people like that, is they've been just gone straight down for the AI agent chatbot type thing. And I was around as you were when chatbots first became available. I remember Talk To, the freebie, and all the rest of it. And we were super excited, weren't we? We thought, wow, the biggest hurdle for agents is actually getting to speak to a buyer. This is solves that instant communication. And so we got super excited. It was going to revolutionize everything of how business was going to be done in real estate. And then forward 3-4 years, buyers didn't really want to chat. It seemed that at that stage in the process, it seemed. And even when they did want to chat, it was nearly always when the agent wasn't even in the office and available to chat. And then so we did the chat bots, where you set a series of rules saying, ask them their budget and that. And that's definitely going to revolutionize things, because what the agent's going to get the next day is this qualified lead of somebody saying, please give me a call. Here's my budget. And we realized after much trial and error that there wasn't much demand for that. Some, yes, but not a lot. And I feel that AI has started off there. They've missed the history lesson, that wasn't something that either the agent isn't trying to replace the conversation. They're trying to replace the 99 calls to get to that conversation.
Yeah.
They want the conversation, and the buyer wants the conversation. So I think there's a mismatch. I'm sure it'll get straightened out. But at the moment, there seems to be that they're just going down an old road that, you see history repeat itself. And I'm not saying that there isn't value in that. I'm sure there is. And there will be some people that, as chat gets better, it can answer some of your questions. Quite often an inquiry from an agent is very specific. Is that they want to know just one thing, how big is there another room, or, there's a pool, is it salt water or whatever it might be. And that's where I can see AI being useful. If it can answer the question, a simple question. In terms of the sort of interaction with the agent, with the buyer on behalf of the agent on the agent website or a portal or whatever. But really, I feel like we're going about the solution is solving something that isn't the issue at hand. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think both agent and buyer in that initial conversation, from a sales point of view, they're trying to qualify each other out. They're trying to demonstrate that this is the wrong person. This is the wrong buyer. This is the wrong agent. But of course, neither party says that. So the agent's going, what's your budget? When are you coming over? When can you tour? And it's really he's really going, are you serious? Are you worth my time? But the buyer's doing the same thing, probably a little less overtly, by going, I don't know, tell me about this property. And is that good value? They're just trying to go, could I have a relationship with this person? But of course, they're not asking that question. So I think a lot of conversations go wrong at that point. They never get started because both parties are trying to kind of dismiss the other one for various reasons and move on to somebody who will buy or an agent who will help me.
Right.
And I think that's the bit that AI won't necessarily help with in the short term. It might preempt some of those conversations, or it might be a first level of qualification. But yeah, we're still not there yet, because what we liked about the old chatbots was it had a tree structure, and you knew where it was going to go and what questions it will ask. You've no idea with AI these days. I mean, you can guide it, but you don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's moving so fast that even by the time anybody even listens to this podcast, it's probably changed already. But
Yeah.
the fundamentals of why people are looking to buy in Spain haven't really changed. There's probably a trend towards relocation that is slightly new post-COVID. More people relocating than were. Is that something you did a survey a couple of year ago, I think it was, or something like that, and there, if I remember correctly, there was a larger percentage than usual of buyers saying they were looking to relocate as opposed to just buy a holiday home or.
Yeah, well, I think post-COVID and then quickly following that, the war in Ukraine, it spawned a whole load of people who were aware of political changes in their home country and going, I don't know if I want to live here anymore. I'm particularly America. But it's happening all over Europe as well. People in Italy going, I don't know. I mean, Italians have been buying on the Canary Islands for a long time, and we saw a big increase post-COVID of people permanently relocating. So clearly Brexit made it difficult for Brits to relocate permanently, but that's been taken up by other nationalities going, yeah, actually, I'd be quite happy to have a second home or a first home outside of my home country.
Agents that are in the know, they see this sort of spread of nationalities as a good thing for stability in the market, because as an international buyer market, the market is more affected by what's happening in the home countries than what's happening in Spain. High unemployment in Spain, sure, indirectly it does, but directly is more affected. Swedish buyers have been more affected by what's happening in Sweden and their property prices, their job market, their currency. So the view from experienced agents that I hear is that this fact that you no longer have, I think in 2008, British buyers represented 38% of all foreign transactions in Spain, and now they represent about 8%.
Yeah.
And if we take the top 5 or 6 nationalities, they are within 1 or 2% of each other. And it is changing, and it's spreading, and it's spreading, and it's spreading. So agents in the know say that this, and I agree, this broader spread, I mean, just basically spreads your risk. You haven't got all your chips on the British market or in the Swedish market or whatever other buyer nationalities it might be. But for agents, the flip side of that is that you got more places to go fishing, to go hunting for buyers, isn't it? As in, is that now you need to attract an American, 2 Belgians, 3 Germans, 4 Swedes, 6 Brits, 2 Irish. What would be your advice to an agent that is saying, okay, so now the market's fragmented. I can't just rely on the British market or the French market or whatever my specialty was. Life was simple before. Where do I advertise now? I mean, where do I pick? Where do I get my leads from? How do I tap into these fractions?
It's always surprised me why agents in Spain now carry on advertising on the likes of Rightmove in the UK, because as you say, they're 8% of the market of international buyers. And when you advertise on Rightmove, which is expensive, you only get access to a portion of those 8%. Whereas you advertise on somewhere like Kyero, you get access to the other nationalities. So I think my advice would be find an international buyer specialist. There are a few. I think Kyero is a great one. But even advertising, say, on Idealista or Fotocasa, which are predominantly domestic, a British buyer, even somebody who speaks Spanish, will go to those portals and not be able to search. It's not enough to land the traffic on those portals. You have to understand the journey of an international buyer and feed those differences on the portal. So specialist portals like Kyero do a much better job for an international buyer than an Idealista or a Fotocasa. And that's, one of the reasons they wanted to acquire us. we're very good at specializing. And it's not the same as a domestic buyer. Alfredo, you've lived on the Costa del Sol since you were a boy. But so the way you will search for property in an area is like, okay, well, I know that street. I don't want to live on this side of the road. An international buyer goes, how far is that from the airport? Very different search criteria. And so accept that a domestic portal isn't going to do a good job. Don't pick and choose the countries. You need broad coverage. Just accept the fact that it's a fragmented market and look for people that have got broad coverage across that market.
The way these agencies that are tapping into all these different nationalities are managing to do that is by having to advertise in multiple places. And in some cases, they won't just do Google ads or, for example, or a portal, but they'll do both for different things. It's kind of, it's spread, the work seems more spread out.
Yeah.
The benefit of that is that you have a more stable market. That's the flip side. But from an agent point of view, I think this idea of playing it like sort of a roulette style where you put all your chips on black doesn't seem to be the way to go, at least from the ones that I deal with that are successful. That it's not a, for argument's sake, idealista or Kyero conversation. It's an and conversation.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, if you're in Madrid, you have to advertise on Idealista. Maybe you'd back it up with Fotocasa. The number of foreign buyers there that won't be on those platforms probably tiny, but on the Costa del Sol, Costa Blanca, I think both of those domestic portals are optional if all of your buyers are international. But yeah, we would hope that Kyero would be right up there at the top of the list. But even people that love us and have advertised with us for 20 years, we're part of their mix. We're never the only portal they advertise with. Because why would you spin that roulette wheel? I think the central problem is, in a domestic market, you might get a lead and sell a property the next month. That doesn't happen in the international market typically. New builds is a whole other category. But for resales, it might be several months before the inquiry that you got, the person that generated the inquiry, can actually travel and view the property and start that relationship going. It could be months. So the desire for a quick transaction from a lead, I think, is the fundamental problem in the international market. We've had, in the past, we've done sort of a 90-day trial of Kyero, and they just don't work. They don't work for us and they don't work for the agent because it's not long enough for the agent to invest the time to get to know the platform and how to make it work best for them, to make sure that their properties have got great images and they're described in multiple languages, that kind of stuff. And typically what they'll do is, if they're on a trial, they'll go, well, I'm going to focus on this one property or these 2-3 properties that I really want to sell, and I'm going to do those. And if they work, I'll do some more. But it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game over a long period of time. So what I see most frequently is the agents doing the rounds with introductory deals are the ones that come and go with the market. They are susceptible to the flow of the market. The agents that have enough backing or have the mindset of always marketing, not necessarily with Kyero, but always be marketing. I think that's the only one that works long term to build a pipeline that's worth something over the long term.
It's funny, I saw that very specifically with the US market. When the US market emerged in Spain a couple of years ago, there were lots of agencies that are well established that were asking me, how do we tap into that? I mean, is it true? Are they getting the, are people selling to Americans? We're hearing it is. And cut a long story short, the one thing I saw in common between those who have sold heavily to Americans and those who haven't, and it isn't related to their years in the business or reputation or anything like that, it's just those who were in channels, marketing channels, that included the US in its reach, not specifically targeting the US, benefited first. And those who their own marketing just did not touch the US in any sort of way, didn't. And they got the head start. I think eventually it all sort of evens out. But I think that is, in a market that is shifting, where you have all these different nationalities buying and stuff like that, and these are up and these are down, and the Germans are good, the Germans are bad, all these different combinations. You kind of need to be there for when they're back. If you wait too long to hear the rumor on the street, oh, I hear the Polish are buying, by the time you figured it all out, you're way behind on the curve, and you miss out on that little purple patch of, making a load of transactions in a market that you didn't even know, that the listings were there available to that buyer nationality to see in the first place. You know what I mean? Is it
Totally.
kind of, you kind
Yeah.
of be there to win. You can't just sort of pick and choose to that degree of refinement.
No, it's, as you were talking, it made me think of financial investing, the index fund versus the active investment. And with the active investment, the onus is on trying to time the market and get in and out, sell high, buy low, all of that stuff, which never works. And if you miss a couple of days of trading, it could wipe out decades of gains. Whereas the slow and steady, I'm always investing. I'm covering the entire market. I know it's not going to be as wild and exciting as if I get the active investing right, but also I'm going to be in business 10 years time, 20 years time, and I'm going to be making money. So I think it's that long-term, slow and steady, broad spectrum investing in marketing that I'm a big advocate for, because who knows? Yeah. With the war in Ukraine, clearly there's been an increased interest from polls, but what if that all gets sorted out tomorrow? Does that go away? What if Trump doesn't get in next election in the US? Do the Americans go away? I'm a scuba diver, so I went to one of the what are they called? The islands in the Azores to dive, and it was great. And I was really surprised by how many Americans were there and had second homes on these tiny islands. We got chatting to them, and they were like, "Well, yeah, it's closer than Europe, and it's quite close to America." So there are reasons people buy in other countries that are evergreen. They come and go, get the actual nationalities, the actual mixes, the actual motivations, but you kind of just have to be in the room for all of them all the time. Okay, Alfredo, I think that's a great place to wrap this up. Thanks for your time today. Always fun to have two old guys reminiscing about the past. But at least between us, we've seen it all and done it all, I think. Let's save ourselves for next week when we're going to talk about lead sources. So we've covered a little bit on organic and portals and SEO. We're going to be doing a deep dive into that. Looking at paid marketing as well, Google, Facebook, that kind of, I should call it Meta now, shouldn't I? The socials and how that works. I'm going to be leaning heavily on you for that one. But also, what about exhibitions? They used to be a thing. Are they still worth doing? What about franchise networks and referral networks and shared properties? How do they work? And AI is promising to become a referral agent. What do we do with all that stuff? So that's what we're going to do on the next episode.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Alfredo.